The Anishinaabe lands in which we live and work are the traditional and treaty territory of the Chippewas of Georgina Island, as well as many other nations whose presence here continues to this day. As the closest First Nation community to Aurora, we recognize the special relationship the Chippewas have with the lands and waters of this territory. They are the water protectors and environmental stewards of these lands, and as a municipality, we join them in these responsibilities. We further acknowledge that Aurora is part of the treaty lands of the Mississauga Chippewas, recognized through Treaty Number 13, as well as the Williams Treaties of 1923. A shared understanding of how the rich cultural heritage that has existed for centuries and how our collective past brought us to where we are today will help us walk together, get together into a brighter future. It's always so lovely to say. Okay, so approval of the agenda. May I have please have a motion to approve the agenda? Councillor Weiss and second by Councillor Kim. Any questions or comments on the agenda? Seeing none, call the vote. All those in favor? Opposed? That carries. Any direct declarations of pecuniary interest? Seeing none. Number 5, community presentations. We have one community presentation by Brian North, South Lake Foundation, regarding the 2023 Nature's Emporium Run for South Lake. Welcome, Brian. You have 5 minutes. You may proceed.
Thank you. I'll have to ad lib a little bit. I didn't realize Mayor Maracas wasn't here. So Deputy Mayor, councillors and staff, my name is Brian North. And I'm here on behalf of the organizing committee and staff of the South Lake Foundation to once again invite you to join the Nature's Emporium 5K Run for South Lake. On a personal note, it's been a while since I've come before you, and I want to congratulate you all on winning your seat on our council. It's great to have a dedicated team running our town. If we could go to the second slide. On April 30th, we will again be lacing up our shoes in Newmarket to run or walk along Davis Drive to raise funds for our hospital. Your participation and fundraising will impact leading edge healthcare close to home, such as patient care, tools, equipment, renovations, and upgrades, which directly impact patients. Next slide. South Lake is our hospital. It's where our friends, families, neighbors, and community members go when there is a medical emergency. I'm sort of was addressing this to Mayor Maracas, but I want to congratulate Mayor Maracas for again rallying the troops and winning the Mayor's Challenge. We can go to the next slide and we'll show them up there. Mayor's Challenge last year. As both a citizen of Aurora and a member of the organizing committee, I'm very proud of your continued support to the hospital. Thank you. That being said, as a committee member, nothing would make me happier if all N6 communities work to outperform you, not to take away from the effort you have done, but to take our fundraising to new heights, making more of an impact on our fundraising goals. Next slide. The Community Spirit Award, won last year by the town of Newmarket, helps to challenge all communities to engage both council and citizens. The more fundraising participants, the more opportunity for the run to raise important funds. As we all know, our communities are growing and South Lake continues to look to the future to ensure we continue to meet the needs of our community. And you, as our community leaders, know we can't do this alone. Please join us on Davis Drive on Sunday, April 30th. We can go to the next slide. Thank you. Please join us on Davis Drive on Sunday, April 30th for this year's Nature's Emporium Run for South Lake fundraising event. Thank you for your time, and I look forward to seeing you all there.
Thank you very much, Mr. North. May I have a motion to receive the presentation? Councillor Weiss, Councillor Gartner. Any questions or comments for Mr. North? Councillor Gartner.
Please tell us how many years you've been coming to council to talk about this.
I've been coming to council for many years.
Yes.
Like, probably too many to count. I've seen a lot of council changes, but for the run, I think it's been 14 years that I've been involved with the run committee. I keep telling them they can fire me anytime, and They asked me to come back again this year, so I do enjoy it. I think the hospital to me is so important for our community, and I love helping them raise funds. So 14 years, I think it's been, I've been coming to council.
Well, thank you so much. It's, you know, somebody's got to do it, and it's great that it's you. Thank you.
Councillor Weiss.
I just want to thank you, Mr. North, for all the work that you've done in the past and for the presentation tonight. I did speak with the executive director of the foundation, and she felt that these types of things are very important for the local people on the street to get involved with the hospital, because it almost touches every single person in this community and in the Northern Six. And I think it's very important that we get out there and start working with everybody to try to get as much behind this as we can. So I want to thank you for the presentation. I want to encourage everybody to participate this in April.
Across the finish line.
I'll be there.
Okay.
Thank you, Councillor Weiss. Councillor Gallo.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you as well, Mr. North, for everything you've done for this fundraiser for our local hospital that we all rely on. As we know, it requires a lot of money to operate a hospital, and the message should also go back to the province to continue and increase funding. As we know, healthcare is an issue more now than ever. But thank you for the role that you play. Just one question through you. I often see the politicians fundraise, and anyone who wants to donate, you accept it no matter what. But I also see a lot of the development community that contributes towards which is great, and it funnels through the politicians. I'm wondering if there's an opportunity that maybe a challenge amongst the politicians, that if a developer does come to them to give money, that they redirect them straight to the hospital, so that there's no intended bias, so there's nothing connected to that donation through a particular politician. I don't know if you've heard of anything like that, or if that's ever something that you guys have considered.
We've never really looked at that, because you are the people that deal with the developers, not us. It's very hard for us to reach out to developers, and it's very hard for us to get developers to help us. Through your efforts and the efforts of councillors throughout the N6, it really helps us if we can get you guys to get them involved and raise funds. We really need the funds. I mean, I don't know whether you realize that staff is paid for by the province. Equipment's not. All the equipment that we raise, or that the hospital uses, is through fundraising. So as we need a new CAT scan, or at the gala this year, they did fabulous raising more cancer support chairs for chemo. It was amazing. The more we get, the more service we can give to the people. So I hear what you're saying, but we really need the councillors, the voice of our communities, to do that for us.
Councillor Gallo.
And in any way suggesting that developers shouldn't contribute, that's not at all what I'm saying. All I'm saying is that the path in which they contribute, and maybe this is a public request to the politicians to deviate from the path, and ask them to track it, but ask them to donate directly to the hospital. Just my thoughts. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Gallo. Councillor Weiss, you did have your name up. Was that on accident? You're good? Okay, perfect. Councillor Kim.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to thank you very much for your many years of support of our town, as well as South Lake. So I just want to thank you, Brian, for always being there and being available for us.
Any other questions, comments? Nope. Brian, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Every year I look forward to you coming to the podium and talking about this wonderful run. It's something I think we all look forward to when, the spring flowers start to pop through the ground and we have something to look forward to and raising good money while we're doing it. So that's right. Start fundraising now. All right. All right. Thank you so
Thank you.
much. Okay. So we're at the end of the delegation. So I'm going to call the vote to receive the presentation. All those in favor? Opposed? That carries. Okay. No delegations this evening. Going to move to the consent agenda. May I have a motion to receive item 7.1 for information? Mover, Councillor Gallo, second by Councillor Kim. Any questions or comments on this item? This is the Lake Simcoe Conservation Authority. Councillor Gartner, did you have some things? Perfect. Councillor Gartner?
Thank you. This will be the last time that I speak on this because I believe it's Councillor Thompson who's going to be attending the meetings. But the Conservation Authority wrote a very good letter to the province about Bill 23. And if I could just say some of the things that they're talking about. Of course, they agree in general, but they wanted to speak specifically to the section that affects the conservation authorities. So first of all, although the bill has been passed, they have to pass regulations to actually activate the bill. So that has not happened. So everybody's a bit up in the air. So everybody's speaking to it on those terms. One of the main concerns the Conservation Authority has is about providing advice to member municipalities with respect to development planning, natural heritage, stormwater, groundwater, source water protection, Lake Simcoe Protection Plan, hazards and floodplain. That's a lot of very important information that municipalities need. And they make the point, as I think we already have at the table, that municipalities just don't have the expertise or the money to be able to get outside experts on that. They're also asking that that a conservation authorities working group be formed so that the authorities can advise the government on the changes and how perhaps to do them in a way that makes sense to the environment. They haven't heard back yet, but that will be probably one of the most important things. And the perhaps the last thing, the Conservation Authority owned land should remain in public ownership and remain green space. And I think probably that's something we all could agree on. Anyway, the authority does a terrific job helping the municipalities, and it looks like we're not going to have that expertise, but well, that'll be a big problem if we don't. Anyway, thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Gallo. Any questions or comments on the consent agenda? No? Okay, Councillor Gallo, Gartner, I just want to say thank you very much for your time on the Lake Simcoe Conservation Authority Board. Your time that you had spent there was so valuable, and the amount of work that you put into it to ensure that Aurora was well represented is greatly appreciated. So thank you very much. Okay, I'll call the vote. All those in favor? Opposed? That carries. Okay, next item, advisory committee meeting minutes. We don't have any, so we're going to pass by that. And we are going to be at number 9.1. CS 23-008, Bill 5, Stopping Harassment and Abuse by Local Leaders Act. May I get a motion to receive? Put the item on the floor for discussion. Councillor Weiss, second by Councillor Kim. Any questions or comments on this item? Counselor Weiss.
Through you, probably to our legal advice. It says in one of the paragraphs, if the judge determines that there's been failure to comply with the workplace violence or harassment, the judge may declare a member's seat vacant. The rules right at the moment are allow not a vacant, but a suspension. And the suspension is up to how many days, weeks, months? Can you help me with that?
Ms. Desario.
Through you, Madam Chair, the suspension would be up to 90 days.
Counselor Weiss.
Thank you. It says in light of numerous incidents involving workplace harassment, do we have a list of the number of complaints that have appeared all across Ontario? If this, I'm just interested in numerous, how many are there?
Ms. Desario.
Through you, Madam Chair, I don't have a list. However, there's lots of articles that I've been able to pull up that have shown that there have been allegations of harassment over the past several months, possibly years. For example, in Ottawa, that was the biggest one. There's Kincardine, there's Richmond Hill, and there's been a couple of others that I've seen.
Okay, thank you.
Counselor.
And one last thing. Could you articulate the difference between what we now have in terms of violence and harassment in the workplace versus what Bill 5 says? Because I know we have that, and I'd like just to know the difference.
Ms. Desario.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Chair, there is no difference. So for us in Aurora, we already have the policies in place. So if Bill 5 is enacted, other municipalities will have to amend their, if other municipalities don't have the policies in place to apply to council, they would have to make amendments. But in Aurora, we already have that, a council code of conduct that it applies to, and our workplace harassment policy and program.
Thank
Counselor?
you. So what we're really being asked here in this is to endorse something that we already have in place here, and it just carries more weight when other people are taking a look at it. When they ask that same question, how many people have adopted this? So we're really just supporting Bill 5 and the intent of Bill 5, but we've already done our work here in this community to protect our citizens.
Ms. Desario, I'm sure they answered
you,
that, but
sorry.
I'm sure that the integrity commissioner is probably a separate part of that.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, there is the integrity commissioner piece. So yes, we have the policies in place. What the bill does is the penalties go further. That's what the difference is.
Counselor
you.
Weiss. You're good. Counselor Gallo.
Yes, I was going to say that that's a pretty big highlight of the difference between what we have now and if this is implemented. A council member could lose their seat as opposed to vacate for 90 days. Through you, Madam Deputy Mayor, do you know the timing of, does anyone know the timing of when this will go through the legislature?
Ms. Desario.
Through you, Madam Chair, no, there is no timing. So as of the last meeting when we discussed this, the bill is still in first reading. So it hasn't really moved anywhere. And that's likely why there's such a push from the women's organization to have the municipalities endorse the bill.
Counselor.
That's it.
Good. Counselor Gartner.
Thank you. Could you say what the penalties will be? It's
Ms. Desario.
Through you, Madam Chair. The penalties would basically be that the member can, if the council member is found guilty, they would lose their seat. They would have to vacate their seat.
I'm sorry, they would.
Vacate their seat. They would not be able to be on council anymore.
Oh, it's a big penalty.
Counselor Gartner.
Thank you. So there would be no in between where there's a financial penalty and an education or.
Ms. Desario.
Through you, Madam Chair. There could be. It would depend how serious
Thank
the
you.
allegations are.
Thank you. I mean, I think it's a great idea. I'm glad that Aurora already has this in place. With the same penalties through you, Madam Chair, to Mr. Sarah, with the same penalties?
Ms.
No.
Desario.
Through you, Madam Chair. No, right now,
So-
we don't have the same penalties.
Thank you. So the difference to the town of Aurora would be that we would have penalties.
Yes.
I think it just makes sense and I support it.
Thank you, Councillor Gartner. Councillor Gallo.
So I think we should just highlight what the process would be. I'll just read it quick from the report. In addition to the current penalties, Bill 5, if passed, would allow a municipality or local board to direct the integrity commissioner to make an application to vacate the member's seat if the integrity commissioner believes that the member has failed to comply with the workplace violence or harassment policy. To make an application, the integrity commissioner must apply to a judge of the Superior Court of Justice for determination as to whether the member of council, a local board, has failed to comply with the workplace violence or harassment policy. So there's a process that still has to go through. Council has to direct the commission, the integrity commissioner has to go to Superior Court. Justice has to verify it, and then a decision is made to remove the council member.
Was that a question for Mr. Serio or is that a comment? Perfect. Any questions or other comments on this? I just have one, if you don't mind. I know that when we had a delegate here last time, I was specific in asking the delegate if going through the integrity commissioner was the best course of action for the process and the efficiency of that. And at that time, she could not answer that question. And I know that when we had our council education session and we had happened to have an opportunity to talk to our integrity commissioner, at that point in time was not 100%. This was the best course of action as far as doing what we wanted to achieve time-wise in the process and what the start to the end was. And so what I was looking for with this report is that I would like to have some feedback from the integrity commissioner to see how they feel about Bill 5 and if this is the best way to achieve the penalties, I think, is what they're trying to achieve efficiently, because if it's just going to prolong it to another term and it doesn't reach, a decision in a timely fashion, then we're just spinning wheels. And that was kind of what my takeaway was. And I was hoping I was going to get some additional information about the best course of action this is going to achieve. So did you get any other feedback, Mr. Serio?
To you? No, unfortunately I did not. I didn't think of contacting the integrity commissioner because they're kind of arm's length from us.
Okay. I guess my comment is I'd like to have some sort of feedback from the integrity commissioner on this, if we are going to be supporting a bill and whether this is something that we want to move ahead with, it then definitely needs to make sense. And there's no point in creating process that may not necessarily work. And so I just kind of want to have it on the record what, they feel would be the best course of action. Sorry, Councillor Gartner.
Thank you. And apologize, I didn't read the paragraph about the judge determining, but it does say that the judge may declare the seat vacant. So that would leave what you were speaking about, room in between the may, that they have to leave the seat, and maybe education, or like the word may is problematic to me.
Mr. Serio?
Through you, Madam Chair. So lots of us lawyers use may. We use may because one, if they're not found guilty, then they're not going to be vacating the seat. So that's why it says may. If they're found guilty, then yes, depending on the seriousness of the allegations, that's where the judge will have some discretion.
Okay.
As to what penalty to apply.
Thank you.
Councillor Gartner, that's it? Okay. Councillor Weiss?
And on that, my last question has to do with just the procedures. When we consider that there's a complaint made against a council member and the integrity commissioner takes it to the judge, there must be a legal process that they go through for the defense of the council member. This is not an integrity commissioner goes to the judge who reads the information and makes a judgment without some form of consultation with the accused.
Mr. Serio?
Through you, Madam Chair. Yes, you're correct. The alleged counselor will always have the opportunity to defend themselves.
Councillor Weiss?
No further, thanks.
Any other comments or questions on this? Seeing none? Okay. Pardon me? Notify the. I mean, we're receiving for today, unless you're changing the motion. Motion on the floor right now is to receive for information. Correct. So unless you want to make an amendment to the motion, now would be the time.
I'm in the wrong agenda item. What are the alternatives?
I think the alternatives, alternative A. I believe is it.
Alternatives that the
A
town of
plus B.
Aurora endorses Bill 5 and that a copy be sent. So it's a two-parter under alternatives?
Correct.
Okay, thank you. I'd like to make that motion.
Anybody want to second the motion? Councillor Kim? Any other questions on the amendment? Councillor Gallo?
Through you, Madam Chair, and to your point, I would actually like to hear the publicly hear the perspective of our integrity commissioner on the process and whether or not, what their opinion is, because they play a very pivotal role. And maybe it's not efficient enough. Maybe they see some pitfalls that we don't see. So I would like to see their opinion before I would move forward with this.
Thank you. Any other comments on the amendment? Councillor Gartner?
Well, I was just going to say between now and council, we could get in touch with the integrity commissioner and find out their opinion. And then
Mr.
at
Serio?
council would make the amendment.
Mr. Clerk?
Through you, Madam Chair, I can ask the integrity commissioner to attend the end of the month council meeting. I don't know. I could ask just for an email thought too, but if council has follow-up questions, the email might not be too helpful. So I could ask the integrity commissioner to attend. It may provide a quick delegation, and then members of council could ask at that point.
Great, thank you.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Clerk. Councillor Gartner, does that satisfy?
Yes, it does.
So did you want to withdraw the amendment?
So, well, if Councillor Weiss is speaking to the amendment, then I'll wait to withdraw it.
Okay, Councillor Weiss?
No, my question was exactly the same. I didn't want to vote for this until we had the information available. So as long as that is going to come back to council and we're going to have the integrity commissioner here to be able to answer these kinds of important questions, I'm ready to let this stand, but I just want to have the information to come back to us.
Very good. Very good.
They could give us a written, thank you so much. Okay, I'll withdraw.
Thank you. So the integrity commissioner will give a written one if not available for the actual delegation on council, correct? Right. Okay, and do I need Councillor Kim's agreeance on the withdrawal of the motion? Yeah, you're okay with that? Perfect. All right, so we don't have to vote on that withdrawal, it's just done and we're back to receive. Okay, so back to the main motion to receive the report to Bill 5, Stopping Harassment and Abuse by Local Leaders Act 2022. I'll call the vote. All those in favor? Opposed? That carries. Okay. Now we have that's it? No. Sorry, I was getting ahead of myself there. We are at 9.2 CS 223-006 Active Transportation and Traffic Safety Advisory Committee. That is correct. And this is a report to receive and also to accept the terms and conditions with the attachments of the Traffic Safety and Advisory Committee and Transportation, and that the amended terms of reference attachment 2 for the Parks and Recreation Advisory Committee be approved. May I have a motion to put this on the floor for discussion? Councillor Gallo, second by Councillor Weiss. Any comments or questions? Councillor Gartner.
Thank you. The Traffic Safety Advisory Committees were in place until 2011, the end of 2010, 2011. And the Traffic Safety Advisory Committee was primarily to receive residents who are having traffic safety issues, listen to them, and then in that case, make a recommendation to council. That would be different now, but that purpose doesn't show up here.
Mr. Clerk, are you wanting to take this on?
So through you, Madam Chair, the way that advisory committees sort of have evolved at the town is that staff will bring issues of traffic, theoretically traffic safety issues, as well as active transportation issues, and get the committee's thoughts on it. And then council will know the committee's thoughts in the advisory committee review section of reports. So it's not direct recommendations, although that's what the advisory committee review section, the purpose it serves.
Counselor?
I think it needs to be in the purpose that the committee will also hear residents' traffic safety concerns. I mean, that was the whole point of the committee, that they wouldn't come to council, they would come to the committee and it would be explored. So there's nothing in here that speaks to that, and that is the purpose of the Traffic Safety Advisory Committee. The other part, the active transportation, I mean, that's great. I don't know if I don't believe we've ever had a committee that deals with active transportation. And I think that's a bonus. So I certainly couldn't support it in this form. It's completely contrary to the past purpose of the Traffic Safety Advisory Committee.
Mr. Clerk, did you want to add to that at all? Can residents come and discuss a new business traffic, any traffic concerns and new business within the committee?
Through you, Madam Chair, residents can delegate at any committee at any time. So certainly that is possible. I think it might provide a bit of bad faith in a sense to the committee, and that committee can't direct staff, and staff already have mechanisms in place where if someone brings a traffic issue to them, I don't fully know the procedure, but if someone brings a traffic issue to our engineering department, they have certain thresholds in terms of petitions and things like that, where our report to council would be initiated through those procedures. So I think that's the way we probably tend to push some of the traffic matters. However, the delegation option would be permitted any time.
Thank you. Councilor Gardner, did you want to follow up? I know you chimed in there again, and I didn't want to take away your first time. So did you want to follow up on that?
But for the council meeting, if we could pull up one of the Traffic Safety Advisory Committee descriptions. The last one would have been formed in 2007, and see what it says, and just simply add that to this, or find a way to work it in, because as this is really contrary to what a Traffic Safety Advisory Committee is.
Thank you, Councilor Gardner. Mr. Clerk, would you be able to provide that information between today and council?
Certainly.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councilor Gallo.
Thank you. I'd be curious to see that, but I'm going to suspect it's not much different than this. I was on that committee, and I recall everything was a report from staff, as it should be. I think if a resident has an issue, they come to us, we'd say, you got to go to the committee through staff. Staff analyzes it, provides a report to the committee with, as the clerk had mentioned, the criteria, and then the committee listens to it and then advises to a certain degree council on what they came up with. I don't think it's a good idea for committees coming straight to the podium and asking the committee, hey, I got this problem. It's just going to push it down the road. Okay, it's going to go to staff, and then staff are going to, it's not the proper way to handle it. It has to go to staff first. They analyze it, comes to the committee, they discuss it, goes to council. And the purpose in here says, one of the purposes, the committee will provide support and advice to all aspects of traffic safety issues that affect the town of Aurora as a whole. I don't know what more you're going to put in that. So I'm okay with the way the wording is. I'd be curious to see what it was in the past, but I suspect it's not going to be much different than this. And it's achieving what Councillor Gardner, I think, is trying to achieve. If we're saying we want the residents to come to that committee straight off and explain their issues, they could certainly do it through other business, but I think we're delaying whatever issue they have. We should be directing them to staff and have a quick analysis of what their issue is, bring it to the committee with some type of information, and then they can discuss it at the committee level with some information, not out of the blue, because the committee is just going to say, all right, staff, go and investigate what the issue is. It shouldn't be that way. It should go to staff first and then to the committee.
Thank you, Councillor Gallo. Any other questions or comments on this item? No, I just have one. In respect to the Parks and Recreation Advisory Committee, I noticed, in 2018, we amalgamated quite a few committees. And at that time, I believe we had 10 members plus 2 councillors. And now that we've kind of picked it all apart and kind of retracted back to the good old fashioned Parks and Recreation, which I think is great. We're still at 10 residents, members, 1 councillor. Was there a reason why we still had that left at 10? Is that something that was recommended? Mr. Clerk?
To you, Madam Chair. It's a interesting thing. We thought that we kicked that around at staff level this week as well. So we did bring the Community Advisory Committee as a recommendation to council to continue on, which would have been the same. And so all council did when last week at council, when the Community Advisory Committee was changed to the Parks and Rec Advisory Committee, was just change the name. None of the membership changed. So rather than change a council decision or recommend something different, we noticed that it does say up to 9. So, when council's appointing, they can, if they appointed 7, we don't see that the terms need to change. It's just up to 9. And so it leaves council a bit of leeway there.
Great, perfect. I like the fact that there's some leeway, because maybe we'll find we'll have quite diverse group that allows for much broader opinions and contributions. So I think that's great. Councillor Gardner. Second time.
Thank you. I just wanted to be clear that that the old terms of reference will be on the agenda to look at. No?
Mr. Clerk?
Through you, Madam Chair, we'll circulate them through email. There's no real great
Okay.
mechanism to put them on the agenda.
Okay, I don't completely disagree with Councillor Gallo, but the wording to me doesn't describe the purpose of the committee. So thanks for circulating it.
Thank you, Councillor Gardner. Any other comments or questions? Seeing none, I'll call the vote. All those in favor? Opposed? That carries. Item 9.3, CS 23007, Business Licensing Bylaw Amendments, Taxicab Tariffs. I need a motion on the floor to the report to be received, and that staff bring forward amendments to Schedule 13 and Appendix A of the town's business licensing bylaw number 5630-14 to a future council meeting to remove taxicab tariffs, and that staff be directed to implement regulatory framework to regulate vehicles for hire, also known as VFH, in Aurora for the purpose of consumer protection and public safety. Could I get a mover and a seconder? Councillor Kim, second by Councillor Weiss. Any comments or questions to the item, to the report? Councillor Gardner.
Hi, I thank you, Madam Chair. Through you, I see Ms. Van Leeuwen's here. Is very familiar with taxicab and taxicab licensing. So do you have anything to add to this?
Ms. Van Leeuwen.
Through you, Madam Chair, Mr. Ray is also attending
Okay.
this
Okay, Mr.
meeting. And in the past, I think the last time that we increased the taxi fares was in 2010. And because it's in the bylaw, we have to come forward with those amendments,
Okay.
and the taxi industry has approached our manager of bylaw and expressed a concern regarding the that we are regulating this, given costs of fuel and competition with
Right.
other vehicles for hire. It has created some issues, and so they have approached our manager of bylaw and requested that these tariffs, that we remove the town from regulating the tariffs, and then they have the authority to modify fares. And other municipalities in the surrounding area have removed that from their bylaws.
Counselor?
Thank you. Follow up through you, Madam Chair. So that means that there's no limit on what they could raise their fares to?
Ms. Van Leeuwen?
Through you, Madam Chair, yes, they would have the authority to increase or decrease so they can be more competitive
Okay.
with other vehicles for hire such as Uber, Lyft, and they can modify. And
Counselor?
Follow up. Is this the taxi cab drivers or the taxi cab company that came forward?
Ms. Van Leeuwen?
through you, Madam Chair. So our licensing bylaw does speak to brokers, taxi owners, and taxi drivers. So there's requirements for each of those roles. So this would apply to, the taxi owners and the brokers, because and the drivers, because it's about the rates specifically. So that their meters would have to be set based on our bylaw and what the rates are indicated in our bylaw, when what they're asking us is to remove our authority to regulate what they charge. However, they'd still have to have the fares presented on a tariff card in the vehicle so that their clients know what rates they're being charged.
Counselor?
Thank you, through Madam Chair. May I ask who came forward to ask for this?
You want me to go to Mr. Ray for this?
Or
Yes, please, through to you, Madam Chair, as I was not involved in those conversations, but I'm pretty certain it was likely today's taxi.
thank you. I
Yes,
didn't
they
realize Mr. Ray was here.
Yes,
Thank
they
you.
are I think they are our only broker at this point in time. Yes, the only broker that we have licensed in the town of Aurora is today's taxi.
Thank you.
Mr. Ray, did you want to chime in just on some context? We don't necessarily need to specify specific business, but at least give some context on the taxi cab community in Aurora and how they reached out to you.
Sure. Thank you, through you, Madam Chair, to Councillor Gardner. Just for context, last year the taxi cab industry did reach out. It was the owners of two of our companies that operate in the town of Aurora. They expressed concerns with the current tariffs that are set in the bylaw being outdated. They expressed difficulty operating, in part due to the pandemic, in part due to rising costs, and the vehicle for hire industry such as Uber and Lyft. Because of the low fare tariff rates, a lot of taxi drivers were leaving these companies and pursuing opportunities with competitors such as Uber and Lyft, for example. So it has taken some taxi cabs off the road in Aurora, and it's shifted the drivers to other sources. So based on the conversations with the industry and doing an overview of this section, we feel that by removing the tariffs, it would create a more competitive marketplace for the taxi industry. Currently, in most municipalities, rates for vehicle for hires are not regulated, and it's open source for business. But the taxi industry would still be subject to annual inspections of the cabs. Drivers would still have to provide medicals in accordance with the bylaw. So we're still making sure that all safety requirements are adhered to.
Thank you, Councillor Ray. Councillor Gardner, any follow-up to that?
Thank you very much, Mr. Ray.
Thank you. Councillor Gallo.
Thank you. So we currently do not have any regulatory framework for VFHs. And if we decide to, how would we regulate that?
Mr. Ray?
Through you, Madam Chair, to Councillor Gallo. Staff would have to explore how we would regulate the vehicle for hire industry. Most municipalities, all municipalities to the south of us and Newmarket to the north have successfully done so. Generally speaking, what that looks like is working with the specific vehicle for hire companies to ensure that they are conducting proper medicals, proper vehicle inspections, background checks on the drivers, and essentially bylaw services would act in a audit capacity to ensure that they are complying with the provisions of the bylaw and making sure that the vehicle for hire drivers are meeting the standards that are very similar to what our current taxi cab industry has to meet.
Councillor?
I find that it's going to be extremely hard to do and to monitor. But I'm not opposed to the idea simply because, you know, we do it for taxis for good reasons, although it's probably linked to licensing with them and it's not with VFHs. I think everyone would want to make sure that who's ever driving those vehicles, driving us around, go through some type of regulatory framework. So I'm in support of that. I just don't know how you can accomplish it. It's interesting that it says bylaw services through consultation with the town's taxi industry. We're going to implement these regulatory frameworks. So I assume it was them that was kind of saying, you know, well, you're making us do it. How come you're not making them do it?
Mr. Ray?
Through you, Madam Chair, to Councillor Gallo, that is correct. The taxi industry has raised concerns about the fairness of the existing process amongst their competition.
Councillor?
So through you, if we agree with this, will that regulatory framework come back to council for us to review?
Mr. Ray?
Through you, Madam Chair, yes, it will. Staff will report back on proposed options for council to consider, and it would require a bylaw amendment if it was supported.
Great, thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Gallo. And Mr. Ray, any other comments or questions? Seeing none, I'll call the vote. All those in favor? Opposed? That carries. Okay, so that brings us to there's no notices of motions as of yet. So we're going to go down to the regional report, which there are none. New business. Councillor Weiss, any new business?
Thank you. Something has just popped up recently. We, on the February 20th, we're intending to have a diversity on ice at one of the arenas. And it came forward that one of the barriers to entry is not just registration fees and paying ice time and the rest of it, but the lack of equipment that people would have to keep themselves safe, particularly when they're just being oriented to a new skill, such as being on the ice. So the discussion that we had was about, well, can we go forward and do an equipment swap? Can we have the generosity of people in the community donate equipment that's required? This is helmets, this is shin pads, and a number of other things. And that seemed like a reasonable thing to do, but the barrier that we have right now is there just does not seem to be any storage space for any of the residual equipment. And I find that difficult to understand with all of the assets that we have, that there's just no place to store. And if that is the case, and we looked around most of the day, if that is the case, then I think we need to have a discussion about our space and our space allocation and what we have for organizations to be able to put their valued equipment someplace so that it can be used by, particularly in this case, by people who just want to get out and try something new.
Ms. McDougall, is she on the line? Ms. McDougall?
Oh, great.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Great, thank you. Yes, certainly our staff are aware of this inquiry and request. And as most of our organizations do have already some type of use or space within our facilities, whether it be administrative and or storage. Certainly we can have another go and evaluate what is in our spaces, but truthfully, between storage rooms used by our sports groups and by the town, we definitely have some limitations. I know that even some of our own equipment is being stored in sea cans right now. So it is difficult. I recognize we'd love to be able to provide those spaces to absolutely everybody, but unfortunately we do have to prioritize and subsequently limit what we have available, which is challenging. Happy to do a review, but that certainly is where our position is at this point. We just don't have space to start storing I'd say a spare equipment for an organization of this nature. So,
Counselor?
Thanks. And I want to thank Ms. McDougall and Mr. Furman, who worked most of the day passing this from one person to the next person to try to find out where we could find a little bit of space for this. So I don't want to give the impression that there was no response. There certainly was. But I do believe we have a real paucity of space that we need to resolve in terms of storage of all sorts of equipment and supplies. And I'd like that to be something that we think about for the future. And thanks to Mrs. McDougall for helping us with that.
Thank you very much, Councillor Weiss. Is that all for new business?
That's it. Thank you.
Perfect. Councillor Gardner.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is information that I think the people in my ward are not going to be too pleased about. Sections of the feeder main along Yonge Street are going to need to be replaced. And to complete the work, water services may periodically be interrupted, or a temporary water network may be required. I'm not exactly sure what that means. It says advance notice will be given.
Maybe Mr. Ramuno would like to.
Mr. Ramuno, let me just say it's going to happen February, which is now to the summer of 2023.
Mr. Ramuno?
To you, Madam Chair, that's correct. It's a regional Yonge Street feeder main. They've got to replace sections from essentially Henderson down to Ridge Road. Again, it needs replacement. And there may be some disruptions, but the region does work very hard in with these projects and providing sufficient notice when there may be disruption in service. Hopefully, it'll be kept to a minimum.
Councillor Gardner?
Thank you, Mr. Muno. It's what I'm looking at says it's going to be from Murray Drive down to Ridge Road. Says it's starting at Murray and Edward. So, yeah. So, the people in my ward have experienced a lot. The railway bridge, Tamarack Park, and now this. So, Mr. Ramuno, if I could ask you please to do whatever you can or tell me who I should speak to make sure that the appropriate notice goes out to this area and also about the water disruptions.
Mr. Ramuno?
Thank you.
Yep.
So we'll
Thank
certainly
you.
do that. We'll work with the regional staff.
Thank you. And as it says, it's starting in February and it's February 7th. You'll take care of it right away. Thank you, Mr. Ramuno.
Thank you, Councillor Gardner. Councillor Gallo? No? Councillor Kim? Okay, I do not have any new business either. So public service announcements. Councillor Kim? Councillor Gallo? Councillor Gardner? Public service announcements. Councillor Weiss?
Up for February 20th, but I encourage everybody who's involved in this community to be involved in Black History Month. We just went through a tremendous launch, an eclectic evening of culture and music and advocacy and passion for that. And they've done a tremendous job. I want to thank the town for the support that has been given to the Aurora Black Community Association and the Black Caucus. And I hope everybody participates as best they can in everything they can do in Black History Month.
Thank you, Councillor Weiss. I do have a couple. Just give me one moment here to bring it up. So in addition to the Black History Month, I know we do have a lot going on through the ABC Aurora Black community, as well as NACA, and plenty of events also at our local library with Risha, who has been doing a tremendous effort to do a lot for that as well. We also have stuff going on at the Rose's Art Gallery, Royal Rose Art Gallery, and that's happening on Saturday, March 4th. I know it's a little bit ahead of it, but it's the artist storytelling, and it's based on truth and reconciliation. So I think that's a great thing that they're doing at that time. And the Aurora Cultural Center also has a few events that are happening as well. On Saturday, February 11th, they have the Sandbox Meridian Magic Carpet Family Show and the Mayor's Celebration of Youth Arts Reception, which is Wednesday, February 15th at 6 p.m. And we have a Magical Family Day, 2 locations at the Armory and Trinity Anglican Church, Monday, February 20th. So that's with the Cultural Center activities, which is fantastic. And also I do want to mention this as much as I possibly can, that I did mention that I was doing a York Region Crime Prevention workshop, session, presentation, whatever you want to call it. And that is going to be on Sunday, March the 5th at the Aurora Community Center upstairs at 6:30 p.m. The topic of discussion is going to be on car thefts, robberies, and home invasions. It has been a very hot topic around the community, and it's something that I had promised my constituents I would bring forward. I really encourage you to go. It'll be an hour presentation specifically around these topics. We'll also have an additional detective on site to ask questions afterwards. It'll be quite informative. There'll be some information and literature that you can take away from, and also a crime portal that you can have an inside look at. So also the intention is that, you know, the Junior A Tigers will be in playoffs. So I'm really crossing my fingers. I'll have a home game following right after this presentation at 7:30. And, you know, hopefully we can do both the crime prevention and the Aurora Tigers playoff games. So go Tigers. Okay. Closed session. We have no closed session items. And now we're down to the adjournment. So may I have a motion to adjourn? Councillor Gallo, Councillor Weiss, all those in favor? Opposed? That carries. Thank you very much, everyone.